Hi everyone, we are going to look at paper writing 804, task 2, extended writing or essay. First of all, let us take a look at the overview of the task. The type of stimulus. Here is referring to the question. Students will be given ideas or problems that you need to think of and to respond to. You also need to establish some ideas pertaining to the topic given. The format of the writing should be in a formal format. Try to avoid the use of contraction, slang, or any kind of informal language. For this task, you are given about 15 minutes to write your essay. You need to remember, the overall duration for writing paper is 75 minutes, 25 minutes for task 1, and 50 minutes for task 2. Please manage your time wisely. The length of the essay should be more than 250 words, approximately about 1 page and a half. Although there will be no explicit penalties for shorter essays, but it reflects the quality of your essay. When writing your essay, please imagine that your reader or audience expecting some information from you. It is your responsibility to explain and to deliver some knowledge pertaining to the topic. Here are some of the language functions that you need to observe. Discussing ideas and evaluating arguments or solutions to problems, meaning that you should be able to provide enough information about the topic, and you need to give some suggestions or ways to overcome any problem related to the topic. Providing advice, reason, opinions, and justification. Here it is referring to the ability to explain your idea in depth. How and why should be well developed in your explanation. Giving example and supporting information. It means that you need to elaborate your ideas accordingly and convincingly. You might as well need to provide some example to further support your ideas. Please bear in mind that you will be assessed based on task fulfillment, whether you have answered the question and discussed on the topic given, the complexity of your ideas, your level of maturity, and the aspect of language where the ability to use different types of sentences in the structure consists of simple sentences, compound and complex sentences, your level of vocabulary, and the organization of your essay. Now, let us take a look at the sample question. There are parts in the question. The first part is the instruction. You are advised to spend about 50 minutes on this task. The second part is the question where you are given a situation. During the Teachers' Day celebration at your school, an invited speaker made the following statement in his speech. After the situation, you can see a statement given to you. Traditional face-to-face classroom promotes better learning environment. This is where you need to focus on the topic. And maybe you want to underline some keywords in the statement. The final part of the question is another instruction on what you need to do. Your teacher asks you and your classmate to write an essay expressing your opinion on the statement. Write at least 250 words. When attempting the question, there are several things that you need to take note. First, read the instruction carefully. Focus on the situation given. Second, understand the requirement of the task. Please bear in mind that task 2 is all about writing an essay. The register should be in a formal format. Thirdly, identify the keywords in the statement given. In this case, you can see the phrases such as traditional face-to-face classroom and learning environment. So when you explaining your ideas, the focus should be on the keywords. You are not allowed to change any of the keywords or phrases. At this point, you can already decide whether to agree, disagree, or agree to a certain extent, which means you can partially agree with the topic given. After that, identify the format of the essay. In essay writing, there are two types of essay: argumentative essay or discursive essay. When referring to argumentative essay, the tone of writing is a bit firm, and there are certain guidelines that you need to follow. The stance should be sustained throughout your essay, whereas when writing a discursive essay, it is more likely you are discussing on the topic. Finally, plan your essay well. Organize your idea accordingly. Make sure you know what to write. Please prepare at least 3 points. The 3 points need to go accordingly. Which should come first? This is the general format of an essay. Generally, you are required to write a 5-paragraph essay. Consists of the first paragraph, which is the introductory paragraph, where you have the general statement, stance, and thesis statement. The general statement is actually the introduction to the topic. You may give a situation related to the topic, or you can start with a rhetorical question that to provoke your audience. You can also start with a quote or an idiomatic expression or a saying by a famous person. You can also start with a definition. But again, remember, it has to be related to the topic. The general statement is a lead-in to the topic. Then, you need to state your stance. There are several angles of discussion that you can choose, whether to agree, disagree, or agree to a certain extent, which means a partial agreement. The last sentence in the introductory paragraph should be your thesis statement. This is where you write your 3 points. The second, third, and fourth paragraphs are the content paragraphs, or the body. The content paragraphs are actually the backbone of your essay, where you put your main points based on the thesis statement that you have made earlier. Always remember, it has to follow the sequence of the points that you have arranged in your thesis statement. Point number 1, point number 2, and point number 3. Then you need to elaborate and explain and provide some examples to support your ideas. At the end of every content paragraph, you need to write a concluding sentence. The purpose of having a concluding sentence is to wrap the particular idea in the content paragraph. You may use any cohesive devices to indicate that you are putting a closure to that particular paragraph, such as hence, therefore, or thus. The last paragraph in your essay is called conclusion. It's a closure. In this paragraph, you are required to recap what you have mentioned earlier. Here, you need to reiterate your stance or reaffirm your stance. Make sure it is consistent with the stance that you have made in your introductory paragraph. For example, if let's say you have agreed with the topic in the introduction, then in the conclusion, the stance have to be the same, agree. And you need to restate your thesis statement, in other words, your points, and you may also give some recommendation or suggestion in the conclusion. This is an additional element in writing your essay. It is advised to use cohesive devices in your essay, as it will make sure your ideas are coherent and connected nicely. But make sure you know the function of the cohesive devices that you use in your essay. Do not simply or mechanically use the cohesive devices. What are cohesive devices? There are words or phrases that you use in writing to connect ideas between different parts of your sentences in your text. The use of cohesive devices can affect the understanding of your ideas as it helps to integrate information. In other words, it makes reading easier and clearer. Here I attach some of cohesive devices that can be used in your essay. You may need some help from your lecturers to explain further. Always make sure you know how to use them appropriately. This is the sample of the essay on traditional face-to-face classroom promotes better learning environment. This candidate has agreed to the topic and he has chosen an argumentative format to write the essay. So the focus of the essay should be on traditional face-to-face classroom promotes better learning environment. The first paragraph of the essay is the introductory paragraph, where you have the general statement in this paragraph. The purpose of having general statement is to introduce to the audience about the topic. This candidate has chosen to give a situation that is related to the current issue where students are using online learning as a method of learning process. And the candidate introduced the keyword traditional face-to-face classroom in the general statement. In other words, you need to lead into the topic when writing your general statement. Then, you must indicate your stance. Like I have mentioned earlier, you can take different angles of discussion. You can agree, disagree, or partially agree to the statement given. This candidate has decided to agree to the statement given in the question. Make sure to state your stand clearly. The final part of the introductory paragraph is where you write your thesis statement that consists of the three main points. Arrange them accordingly. The candidate has agreed to the idea that traditional face-to-face classroom promote better learning environment. As for point number 1, he decided to write on traditional face-to-face classroom allows ample opportunity for social interactions. And for the second point, it will be about traditional face-to-face classroom improve mental alertness. And the last point is about traditional face-to-face classroom provides immediate feedback. These are the three elements that you need to have in your introductory paragraph. General statement, stance, thesis statement. Let us take a look at the content paragraph or the body of the essay. The first sentence of your content paragraph should be your first point. As we noticed earlier, this candidate promised us that the first point he will be discussing on traditional face-to-face classroom gives ample opportunity to interact between teacher and students. He kept to his promise, so he went on elaborating on the idea. His elaboration helped to support his idea on how traditional face-to-face classroom allows communication between teacher and students. He discussed on classroom participation among students and motivation through classroom activities. To further supporting his idea, this candidate also provided an example how teacher help students to overcome fears in examination through continuous guidance. At the end of the paragraph, the candidate came up with a concluding sentence. By using a phrase, as a result, this indicates the candidate tried to wrap his idea in particular paragraph. Always remember that content paragraph should consist of main idea, elaboration or explanation to support your main point, example, and concluding sentence. Now we move to the second content paragraph, which is paragraph number 3 in your essay. This is a continuation of your idea. Refer back to your thesis statement. So for this candidate, it means point number 2. He promised to discuss on how traditional face-to-face classroom improves mental alertness. So he kept to his promise. He elaborated and gave an example on how traditional face-to-face classroom can improve student ability to analyze and synthesize information. The format is still the same here. Main point, elaboration, and write the paragraph with a concluding sentence. This is paragraph 4. Point number 3. Earlier in the thesis statement, the candidate promised to elaborate on how traditional face-to-face classroom provides immediate feedback. He elaborated on the idea on how students may ask their teacher if they have encountered any difficulties pertaining to the subject they have learned. Teacher can give adequate information and give specific explanation to overcome the situation. As the same as the previous paragraph, in this paragraph the candidate wrapped the idea with a concluding sentence, where students will get satisfaction upon the responses given by the teachers. The final paragraph in your essay is called the conclusion paragraph. In this paragraph, you are supposed to reiterate your stance, or in other words, you reaffirm your stance. For argumentative essay, please make sure that your stand is consistent with the one that you made earlier in your introductory paragraph. Then you restate the thesis statement of your 3 main points. And to make it look nice, you may also include some recommendations or suggestions. The concluding paragraph acts as a closure to your essay.